Okay, so we're going to get started. It's 1 o'clock on the dot. Thank you for joining us, everyone. My name is Latrina Kelly James with Root Cause. We are a partner with Campaign for Black Male Achievement to assist them in various areas, including hosting this webinar today. So I want to thank all of you for joining us for this Promise of Place webinar through the Campaign for Black Male Achievement, focusing on excellence and lifting up the city of Detroit, Michigan. This is part of a series of webinars CBMA is conducting that's highlighting cities that were measured in its first Promise of Place report, as well as another set of webinars that they host focusing on high school excellence, which will be discussed later in the webinar. If you are following the webinar on the phone or listening on a headset, we ask that you also go on the web link to follow along with the slides that we'll be sharing with you throughout the call. Just a bit of housekeeping, if we can make sure that everyone's phones are muted unless you're a speaker. And for speakers, we will unmute you when it's your turn to speak. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. And I'm going to turn it over to Christopher Rutherford, who is our Promise of Place Program Manager for the Campaign for Black Male Achievement.
Good afternoon. This is Chris Rutherford calling you from Detroit. I'm the Promise of Place Program Manager. I'm here with my colleague, Shiva Raj, and we will be going through the webinar with you today. So today's webinar will feature Black male achievement and engagement work from Detroit, Michigan. We are very excited to have them join us for today's webinar to share their work. Next slide, please. One of the purposes of our monthly Promise of Place webinars is to continuously be in conversation on how we mobilize, leverage, and sustain our commitment, efforts, and practices to advance the well of Black men and boys. In the Promise of Place report, we highlighted 3 action steps which continue to guide our conversations and webinars around this work: collective work and responsibility, creating space for all concerned, bound together by commitment and accountability, respect and recognition, affirming and reimagining Black men and boys as assets in the community, and bold goals and outcomes, setting aspirational goals to guide collective work. Today's webinar will include insights and updates on current and future CBMA field engagement, strategies that move us toward making tangible progress in efforts to improve life outcomes and opportunities for Black men and boys, and insights from local leaders in Detroit, Michigan, where we will hear their story and some of the highlights of their work, both progress and challenges with advancing Black male achievement and positive outcomes. Next slide, please. Can we advance the slide, please? So a focus of our Promise of Place work is being able to track progress and movement in the field of Black male achievement and success across a variety of sectors. One way that we do this is through hearing from local leaders like yourself. The CBMA City Field Building Blocks Assessment is a survey where we ask local stakeholders to complete to keep CMA informed of work on the ground. As a follow-up to this webinar, we will send you a link to the CBMA City Field Building Blocks Assessment. Completing this assessment is key to making sure we have the latest insights and updates from stakeholders in your city working on behalf of Black men and boys. Please feel free to share the assessment with your colleagues as well. Next slide, please. Established in 2008 as an initiative of the Open Society Foundation, the Campaign for Black Male Achievement is a national membership network that seeks to ensure the growth, sustainability, and impact of leaders and organizations committed to improving the life outcomes of Black men and boys. In 2015, CBMA spun off from the Open Society Foundation as an independent entity which supports a growing network of more than 4,700 individuals representing more than 2,500 organizations across the United States with resources and services for capacity building, network building, and strategic communication. Next slide, please. So CBMA is very proud to work with, support, and learn from our partners across the nation. The membership network includes over 5,000 leaders representing more than 2,700 organizations. On our website, you can check out the work of many of our members So please feel free to learn more about our membership there. And if you have not already signed up to be a part of CBMA Membership Network, please feel free to sign up on our website, as we would love to stay engaged with you. Next slide, please. CBMA enjoys the opportunity to acknowledge our funders who have been instrumental in our startup and continues to support our work as we deepen and expand our efforts nationally and across local cities. Our funding partners include Open Society Foundation, J.P. Morgan Chase, the Skillman Foundation, Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, the William R. Kennan Jr. Charitable Trust, Ford Foundation, the Poor Center for Social Impact, Knight Foundation, Casey Family Programs, the California Endowment, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the Kresge Foundation, the Heinz Endowment, Carnegie Corporation and Network, the Chicago Community Trust, as well as the American Express Foundation. Next slide, please. CBMA has worked to support and contribute to the work of many organizations across the field, and are very proud to work with these organizations. And are doing some of these organizations include Be Me, Cities United, Echoing Green Black Male Achievement Fellowship, Executive Alliance, New York City's Young Men's Initiative, National League of Cities Black Male Achievement, Technical Assistance, My Brother's Keeper, and of course our own Rumble, Young Man Rumble. Next slide, please. CBMA has worked to pull together a number of resources to engage and support the field of black male achievement. These resources offer a wide variety of tools and strategies to support the growth, sustainability, and impact of its members and the national black male achievement field. These resources include the Promise of Place Report, Cities Advancing Black Male Achievement, December 2015, which is the first of its kind of report to track and communicate cities' efforts to advance black male achievement. Building Beloved Communities, Strengthening the Field of Black Male Achievement, May 2014. Building on the groundbreaking report, Where Do We Go From Here? Philanthropic Support for Black Men and Boys. This companion piece explores the diverse, multidisciplinary, and cross-sector work to advance black male achievement. Also, Quantifying Hope, Philanthropic Support for Black Men and Boys. This report analyzes U.S. funding trends for black men and boys and describes recent initiatives in the field of black male achievement. And Where Do We Go From Here? Philanthropic Support for Black Men and Boys, October 2012. Drawing on 8 years of grant data and 20 years of history, this report describes more trends in foundation funding for black men and boys. Next slide, please. So, our CBMA High School Excellence Framework. The Campaign for Black Male Achievement's High School Excellence Framework has been developed to elevate the relevant levers we believe will support black men and boys as they transition from high school, college, career, and community. The 5 pillars of our framework include academic rigor and achievement, academic and future planning, family and community involvement, opportunity, access, and retention supports, as well as school presence and engagement. We see work around these 5 key areas as critical to providing robust and high-quality opportunities for our black boys, and ultimately to support the foundation of building a beloved community where black boys are supported to thrive and succeed in school and life with the support of a loving and supportive community. Using the identified levers and associated activities, CBMA, along with our High School Excellence Advisory Board, believe that our framework will not just increase high school graduation rates, but ensure that schools and communities are supported in this process. CBMA has a history of making history, as commonly stated by our CEO, Sean Dove. The High School Excellence Framework will continue the history of making history mindset for CBMA. Now you'll hear from my colleague, Shiva Rogers.
Thank you, Chris, and good afternoon, everyone. I just wanted to share just a little bit about our Promise of Place report, and to also share that we really enjoy being able to acknowledge the organization, CBMA, our work, our High School Excellence Framework, our partners, our funders, because we understand some of you, it may be your first time joining us, and we just wanted to give you a little background. And so for the Promise of Place report, at CBMA, one of the things we hold firmly to is the belief that our communities will only prosper if all of us, which includes, of course, our Black men and boys, when all of us can succeed and reach our full potential. And we believe that we all have a role to play in helping our young men and boys overcome barriers both in our communities and nationally. And if we work together, we will be able to succeed and see our young men and boys thriving and succeeding in their communities and in life. And so the Promise of Place report, our first report actually was released in 2015. It unveiled the Black Male Achievement City Index, which actually scored 50 cities across the nation on their visible level of engagement and action on behalf of Black men and boys in their cities. And so across those 50 cities, we were able to sort of pull out data that represented over 5.5 million Black males, which is more than 30% of all Black men and boys in the United States. And so you'll see through the link here on the report that the median score was a 53 out of 100 points total. And so how did we compile sort of the 100-point category? We'll move right into that so you can see just sort of what the 5 categories of engagement and committed action that we measured. We looked at the demographic mix, which was about 10 points. Their the city-led commitment to Black men and boys. CBMA membership, so because we are a membership organization, members, individuals, whether you're an individual or part of an organization, you can become a member. So we looked at the city-level membership across those cities, which is 20 points. National initiatives as well also earned 20 points, and then targeted funding supporting Black men and boys is also 20 points. And that's how we derived a 100-point total for the scoring. You can also go on our website and look at the report, of course, as well as the city index and see where you fall and where your city falls and how your city was particularly scored. For Detroit, actually Detroit was one of the top 3 cities that was scored in the report alongside Oakland, California, and Washington, D.C. How you can sort of read your score or interpret your score. When you look in the report on page 16, you can see there's kind of 3 different ways that we're looking at sort of what these scores mean. And again, it's not the end-all, be-all, but it's just a level in which we think cities can look at and say, hey, you know what, we may have a high level of engagement, but, you know, there may be still more work to come. You know, a medium level of engagement, maybe if you had a score between 31 to 70 points, you know, there may be still work around harnessing local stakeholders in your cities to increase engagement and actions on behalf of Black men and boys. And then if your city was in maybe the lower range between 0 to 30 points, you know, it doesn't mean that, you know, there's no action taking place, but perhaps continue to get engagement with your local stakeholders and community leaders to really promote and advance more opportunities for Black men and boys. But we do go into detail in our report on ways to interpret the score, but just also the actions as we move ahead, which is really most important. We also want to highlight, if you go on our website, there are ways that you can continue to update CBMA on sort of what your city is doing, and this will help us as we continue with tracking the city index and sort of where cities are falling along the spectrum. So please feel free to go to our website. We have city-specific pages where you can continue to update us on what's happening in your city. So we really appreciate you all engaging with us and keeping us updated, because that's really, really, really important to have ears and eyes in communities, and through our members we get to do that. So just very briefly, we want to really make time for our speakers today. So I'll briefly mention that we are underway with our 2017 Promise of Place report. So I'm very excited to be working with the dynamic team on our report. what we'll be doing in the 2017 report is essentially tracking progress made since the 2015 report. And we'll be doing that across the 5 data categories you just heard about in terms of how we measured the city index in the first report. So we'll be able to continue to look across 50 cities to see where was their movement and really track the progress that was happening on that front. We'll also, in this report, the 2017 report, will feature in-depth profiles of additional cities alongside CBMA's 5 core cities, which is Detroit, Oakland, Louisville, Milwaukee, and Baltimore. So we'll have a few deep dive profiles where we'll have additional information featured in the report. So as Chris mentioned, the field building blocks assessment, we were saying please complete it, share with your colleagues. That assessment, particularly for Detroit, Oakland, Louisville, Milwaukee, and Baltimore, that assessment is information we garner from that will help us in this 2017 report and these deep dive profiles. So we certainly appreciate receiving those surveys, but also other cities. We're continuing to track cities nationally. So any other cities that are participating with us today on the webinar, we'd absolutely love for you to take time to do that survey, the field building blocks, which is featured earlier. The link is featured earlier in the presentation. And so also what we'll be able to do in the 2017 report is lift up a few new cities, emerging cities where they are really engaging in the work, and they were not included in the first report. So we're really excited about that, and more to come on the 2017 report, so please stay tuned for that. So today we'll just roll straight into hearing from our panelists today. Detroit is home to a robust stakeholder network, as well as nonprofit organizations that are paving the way for Black male achievement. Detroit is home to 5 of the 2016 CBMA Black Male Achievement Innovators. So Detroit is really a key city for national Black male achievement work. It is the first city that CBMA has invested a full-time staff in office, including myself and Chris. So, Detroit is absolutely moving work around Black male achievement. So we wanted to really feature this work on today's call. Of course, Detroit has a local elected leadership that's just truly engaged with the work here, particularly the work with the task force on Black male achievement, as well as the My Brother's Keeper Challenge. Detroit has been a participant in and then also partnered with CBMA to launch a $500,000 innovation challenge, which invested in ideas for improving outcomes for boys and young men in Detroit. So we're really excited to hear from dynamic leaders on the ground today to learn more about their work and their work to engage Black men and boys. So I'll pass it right on over to Latrina to get us started with this portion.
Thank you very much, Sheba, for that summary of the Promise of Place report and the intro to Detroit, Michigan, and promising actions in the city. So we're now going to hear from those voices in the field. And we're going to start off first with Tiffany Brown, who is with Developing Despite Distance in Detroit. She's also a My Brother's Keeper innovator. So Tiffany, thank you so much for joining us. And if you have questions for the presenters as they're speaking, we just ask you to type them in the questions box, and we will do a Q&A at the end of this of the speaker's presentation. Thank you, Tiffany.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sheba and Chris, and thanks so much for having me today. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tiffany Brown, and I am the founder and chief executive officer for Developing Despite Distance and also a licensed counselor here in Michigan. Our program, Developing Despite Distance, also known as 3D, services young men of color in Detroit ages 11 to 18 that currently have a parent that's incarcerated, So our participants are ages 11 to 18 years old, currently have an incarcerated parent and must be Detroit residents, and, of course, are young men of color. My passion for creating this program stems from my personal experience with parental incarceration. During my teen years, my mother served 3 years in federal prison, and as a result, I'm sure you guys can imagine, my siblings and I were greatly impacted by her imprisonment. So when I heard about the awesome My Brother's Keeper Innovation Challenge last year, I jumped at the opportunity. Thankfully, we're currently supported and we were awarded as a part of My Brother's Keeper Innovation Challenge, and supported by the Skillman Foundation and also the Campaign for Black Male Achievement. And so we are very grateful and thankful for our partnerships. So I do want to take a little time right now just to go over a couple statistics as it relates to parental incarceration. Parental incarceration is not something that the average person willingly talks about. It's oftentimes very stigmatized. So one of our goals of 3D is to increase community awareness that these young men of color with incarcerated parents exist within our communities, and they're currently suffering in silence. Parental incarceration is absolutely a shared sentence. So when I created this program, I honestly was thinking, how can we support these young men and create increase community awareness, be advocates for them, and to really just to give them a voice within our community. Currently today in America, 1.7 million children have a parent in prison. And of those 1.7 million children, 70% of them are Black and brown children. Michigan currently ranks third in the country for parental incarceration. We have over 140,000 children with a parent incarcerated today. So with that said, our initial goals were to strengthen the relationship of boys of color and their incarcerated parent while providing them emotional and academic support. As we know, the parent-child relationship is one of the most meaningful, impactful relationships that we'll ever have. And despite the societal mistake of the parent is fundamental and at the foundation of the development of their child, hence the name of Developing Despite Distance. So over the past 12 months, we've realized that although we aim to keep our young men consistently connected to their incarcerated parent through letter writing workshops and by providing financial assistance to help our young men get to the prison to visit their incarcerated parent, the work that we do is deeper because the challenges and the barriers are deeper. So that means that we're now currently supporting our young men as a whole. We are wrapping all the way around that young person and providing supportive services, one-on-one social-emotional support, also group counseling. And the goal of our group counseling piece is really to help them realize that they're not the only young person being impacted by parental incarceration, but because it's not something that people willingly talk about, they oftentimes feel like they are alone. And so we are able to provide them a safe and confidential space to begin to have the conversation of them expressing their emotions. Of course, they're young men of color, and we know that men are guarded emotionally oftentimes. And then when you're impacted by something like parental incarceration, you're extremely guarded. And so we are really just wanting to increase the support that we have for these young men, really wrap around them and to provide them with some emotional support and to begin to help them develop healthy coping strategies. So in addition to our group counseling, our one-on-one support, we host Father's Day card making workshops, Mother's Day card making workshops. The incarcerated parent is oftentimes not the priority of the caregiver, and so it's our goal of the program to just come in and to support the family as a whole. And so we see that, our incarcerated parents are really grateful for us being able to partner with the families and to get them letters consistently and for them to be able to consistently communicate with their child. In addition to that, we do field trips. We assist with obtaining summer employment. But really the foundation of what we do is that social emotional support for our young men. And so that's what I have today, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Tiffany. So we are going to move on now to Richard Grundy, who is with Journey in Detroit and is also a My Brother's Keeper innovator. Thank you, Richard, for joining us.
Thank you. I'm Richard Grundy. I'm the co-founder, CEO, and lead instructor for Journey. Journey is an EdTech nonprofit that is dedicated to decentralizing access to technology for Detroit residents. Our mission is to empower individuals from underserved and under urban communities by providing them the technical education needed to compete and thrive in the local ecosystem and also the global ecosystem. Since July of 2016, when we started our first program, Journey's impacted we've actually impacted over 70 young men through web development courses, workshops, and events that we've hosted so far. Tech in Detroit it's a very exciting time in Detroit. Technology is quickly becoming a centerpiece in Detroit's growth, Michigan is ranked number 4 as far as tech jobs with a 4% annual growth rate. There's a ton of tech employment positions with corporations such as Quicken Loans, Rocket Fiber, Automation Alley, and a lot of freelance opportunities for software developers in Detroit. I would say the issue is that despite this growth, there are limited amount of opportunities for underserved and underrepresented Detroiters to enter and thrive in our city's tech ecosystem. Of course, we're 83% black, but the tech world is overwhelmingly white due to our inaccessible, unaffordable tech education options. The main programs are located downtown and in Midtown. They're inaccessible to most residents. A quarter of the city does not own a car, have access to a car, and 90% of the jobs in the region are not accessible within a 60-minute public transit. On top of that, tuition is pretty expensive for the average Detroiter, where the median household income is about $26,000. As our tech industry continues to grow, there's a clear need for initiatives that can encourage equitable access and opportunities for our young men and underdeveloped young men from underserved communities. What we decided to do, and we started our program again last summer, we're bridging that digital divide by providing accessible, affordable coding programs to residents. We partner with nonprofits, workforce development training agencies, and other organizations to kind of subsidize the tech education to Detroiters in their communities. And I'll kind of emphasize even in their communities and make sure that we're clear. We are very intentional about meeting our students, our young men, and all of our students exactly where they are. So all of our programs have been in the inner city of communities. If you're familiar with Detroit, our first program was on the corner of Puritan and Greenfield, nowhere near downtown or Midtown. It's a place where there's not any coding programs that are anywhere near that, but there's a lot of Detroiters, a lot of young men who deserve to have access to these opportunities that technology and the coding background and just the knowledge of coding background can offer them. So we offer our students pathways to entrepreneurship and financial freedom through our courses by placing an emphasis on real work experience, portfolio building, and mentorship that connect them to gainful opportunities and guide them through their path to success. We're taking a place-based approach just to kind of double down on that idea of meeting them exactly where they are with our idea of a house of technology, where we will start turning Detroit homes into tech hubs within the communities to offer classes, labs, and a living space for techies and startup founders that are interested in being in Detroit and interacting in the actual city, inner city of Detroit. The Journey Way, I would say that we place a heavy emphasis on cultural competency within our courses. So there's a lot of there's a good amount of tech courses out there, but being able as an instructor or as an organization to understand that sometimes our young men face unique issues reflective of their culture and community is very important. So we infuse cultural competency in all of our instruction. We make sure that all of our instructors can identify and connect with our students from whatever environment they're coming from. Students can create projects based on social issues that are important to them by allowing students to learn in an environment that reinforces their perspectives and experiences. We increase their academic interest and self-confidence. So if they're building projects on, one of the projects that came from our first program was on Black Lives Matter. Another project just recently at one of our high school programs was based on getting jobs for middle school. When they understand that they can use technology to solve problems in their community, it increases their academic interest and self-confidence in what they're learning and what they're capable of. Transformative mentorship is another pillar of our program. Just having different mentors from around the country and local mentors, of course, that can kind of connect with our students. They can look like our students, and that's fine, but being able to identify with what they're going through, being able to identify with whatever our students, whatever career path they want to take, whether it's being a web developer, whether it's being a project manager, whether it's being a founder of $1 million company. We want to make sure that we have a diverse group of mentors that come into our class, and that's what we continue to do. And then also entrepreneurship training. So we believe that economic dependence is key to a bright future. Part of our coursework includes opportunity for students to build websites for local businesses, so they understand what it's like to communicate with the client. They understand that process of building a website, which actually just reinforces that the process of building a product, period, for whatever industry they're in. And that's pretty much it. So that's the Journey Way, and this is just a picture of some of our students. The first picture is two students that went on a pitch competition. The second is a student pitching his business model canvas, and then the one in the middle is of a hackathon that we hosted, and we connected with a lot of students that weren't even in our current programs. So that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Richard, for that overview of Journey. We're now going to move on to Donnell Wilkins, who is with the Green Door Initiative and is also an MBK innovator and on the Detroit Advisory Board at CBMA. Donnell, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I am very honored to be a part of the conversation. So I am the CEO and founder of the Green Door Initiative. Our mission is to ensure that everyone is environmentally literate, capable of promoting and living out a sustainable lifestyle. In short, it's really all about ensuring that everyone has the opportunity to participate in supporting our environment and creating a future that is sustainable and healthy for everyone when it comes to the environment. I come to this conversation around our work. We have a program called the Environmental Technician Training Program, and the goal is to build, it's a workforce development program intended to recruit and build skills and leadership among African American men in particular in our community who are underrepresented in the industry, and try to create a robust opportunity for folks to compete in this industry and to be a contributor and problem solver when it comes to environmental issues such as climate change and global warming, disaster response, and those kind of things. Our model for this program is restoring hope for people while providing help for the planet. And so we intentionally recruit individuals who are underemployed or unemployed, who may not be engaged in their community in any particular meaningful way. And we recruit young men, particularly between the ages of 22 to like 36 years old, although we do serve folks at minimum 18 years, and we have served folks as old as 60 years old. We, since 2011, when we launched this particular program, we've served about 200 individuals. About a third are returning citizens, and we're really trying to create environmental heroes and contributors to the community where they may have been seen as liabilities. How do we create assets and help them to understand that they are assets? So what you have before you in this slide is pretty much our vision of creating a healthy, thriving city that has been laden with a legacy of environmental problems since the inception of the automobile industry. That really has left the city of Detroit with a lot of issues when it comes to contamination, pollution, in the land, issues around air quality, water quality. I know many people may be familiar with the Flint issue. we're building capacity among folks in our program to address each and every one of those programs. Key to our work is around informing public policy, and while we have gained a lot of notoriety and background in informing policy to ensure that everyone has access to clean air, clean water, safe drinking water, and those kind of things, someone has to drive the conversation that we believe ultimately ends up in creating jobs and becoming a real source for economic mobility and thriving. In doing that, we also provide some direct services, and we really believe that our model for this workforce process is essential. And part of that is, one, while we are addressing the needs of people and bringing them into the program, we understand that we have to, like the former speakers, we have to provide opportunities for people to overcome some of the barriers that they have had to deal with over their life. So foundation to our program is to address life skills like others have discussed, and in those life skills confront issues that may have some personal opportunities for overcoming those issues. And we also, even in that, do some things that focus on their responsibility to become civically engaged in their community. And I'll talk a little bit about that a little later. Skills is critical to the training program. It's a 12-week course. And in that 12-week course, first 6 weeks is about life skills and about basic skills, study skills, math skills, and other things, so that folks can conquer the next 6 weeks of technical training skills. And those technical training skills really delve deep into what's required to earn certifications and licenses in a comprehensive fashion to ensure that folks are competitive in the industry. And then ultimately, we provide resources for job placement. We have full-time job developers that work to match employers with the folks that are in the program. But beyond that, what's not here is that we've been able to enjoy some unexpected benefits in seeing a number of the people in the program create their own businesses and actually return as employers to do some hiring. And for me, that's transformative and very essential in the outcome of the work that we do. In the end, our goal is to, one, bring a missing, I tell these folks in our program all the time, you've been missing in action. And so the responsibility to become involved in their community, their neighborhood, to understand social justice, and to get involved in becoming leaders and a voice in their community is essential in this work as well. And so that's how we're going to end up experiencing a Detroit that is clean, that is safe, that is sustainable, and that incorporates the essential elements for a thriving economy and environment. These are the heroes that will make that happen. Once we restore the environment, we work to empower them to become advocates, and that's been an amazing process to see folks who have not attended a city council meeting or ever participated in organizing a block club now are organizing block clubs, are volunteering on Pale League, are attending various civic meetings, and just becoming involved, recognizing their power and their potential, using the environment as a driving force for that has been really effective. We really appreciate how others have been able to contribute to our work in ways that leverage the success in the program. But I do want to also talk about, going back to our direct services and whatever, what's really key in our program is that most of the, no, well, 99% of the instructors happen to be African American men in the field, environmental scientists, urban planners, construction leaders, whatever. They are the instructors. What's also unique to our program is that we provide one-on-one counseling so that each individual has the opportunity to interface with someone and really talk about some of the personal challenges. And though we can't address every need, what we do provide are strategies and tips to overcoming some of those personal barriers. The other thing that we add to this is the opportunity for them to define for themselves how they're going to flourish in this work and how they're going to contribute going forward in this work. So I want to end with a pretty wonderful testimony. We had a young man who came into the program about 2 years ago, and he was just really ready for a change. He, someone who was about 30 years old, he had an interest in a little bit of the environment, but he really didn't know a lot about it. He came through the program. He fell through the program, which is a pretty rigorous program, and he decided to start his own nonprofit. When he left the program, he created a new organization in the city of Detroit called Neighborhood Bug, Building Urban Gardens. And I have to tell you, I am so proud of the work that they have done through the organization, leveraging their own resources, hiring their own staff, providing opportunities for young people in their neighborhood on the northwest side of Detroit, and becoming a spokesperson for the urban ag movement across the city, but not only across Detroit, but even nationally become recognized for the work that they have done with the neighborhood bug. And we have other success stories like that. And this is transformative, and we think it is an opportunity to really showcase the missing link in terms of the leadership that is out there on the harvest pit. We think that we are able to harvest that leadership and direct that passion and leadership through the environmental sector. So all things being equal, this is about ensuring that we have success in restoring our environment and rebuilding it in such a way that everyone, regardless of their background, can enjoy a healthy life going forward. So that's our work at the Green Door Initiative. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Donnell, for that really great overview of Green Door Initiative. Appreciative of it. So we're going to move on now to our next speaker, Keith Bennett, who is with Flip the Script in Detroit and is also an advisory board member for CBMA. Thank you, Keith, for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me, everyone, and all the listeners. Thank you for taking the time. We at Goodwill Industries, Flip the Script, we've been at it since 2003. As a fact, Monday of this week we celebrated our 14th anniversary. What we found our niche was in trying to address the storm that's been out there for so long, is this high incarceration that the state of Michigan seems to be in the top 2 or 3 for the last 20 years. High dropout rates and opt-out rates between young black males. That school to prison pipeline. And so for years we served young men coming home from incarceration with the idea that one day that we would get into providing services on the front end and stopping or derailing that school to prison pipeline. And so we believe that now the Department of Corrections think they are the best educators of our young black males. And so we're fighting that fight to say that our young men should get these services within the community and not have to go behind prison bars to get these services. And so we have generally served young men, about 8,000 of them. However, only about 2,983 have been in the age of 16 to 35, who are generally described as unachievers. Very low literacy. Is nothing for us to see a young man 16 to 25 hit our doors, often with a high school diploma, but still functioning on a third or fourth grade level in many subjects, not just math and reading, but many subjects. They have had contact with the criminal justice system, in most cases more than one time, lacking a high school or GED, high school diploma, or any credentials as far as completing high school. A lot of the young men we're seeing and have seen are living in trauma, have depression, and have lost hope. And so what we try to do is establish a respite or a space or a place where all of the young men that have those issues that are normally don't really fit in anywhere else, because their behaviors and usually their social behaviors are so poor that most people won't have the time and patience to deal with them. And so that's what we kind of carved out our niche in. And then the foundation of that is chronic homelessness. And so we become a place where really young men camp out at during the day and address some of their issues while we're trying to find them adequate homes or emergency housing. We've been blessed. Last fall, the J.P. Morgan and Chase watched us for about 10 years with the Kresge Foundation and LIST here in Detroit, and found a way to get us $2 million to build a facility around these young men. And we've showed the young men where their effort, where their outcomes have resulted in a facility being built that they can call their own, and it's a state-of-the-art facility. We're proud of our education recovery system. As I mentioned, that a lot of the young men have extremely low literacy and they haven't completed high school, so we run Monday through Friday a GED prep center from 9 a.m. to 5, and in the fall we even run it to 6:30 or 7. Those young men, we're trying to get ahead of the storm again, because we're trying to find out what we can do to address their deficits and make them strengths before they turn again to criminal activity. In our 13 years in doing reentry, in our 13 years of doing work with these guys, we have one of the lowest recidivism rates in the nation, and that's been kind of tracked by the Urban Institute, University of Michigan, Department of Corrections, and a number of people, the Joyce Foundation, and found out generally when we can wrap our arms around this population for 8 weeks or more, they may recidivate as far as doing petty crimes, but they're not doing anything that's very violent or taking other people's lives. Education recovery is part of our whole emphasis. We build our foundation on math, that we believe that young males, young black men of color can do math, can excel at math, and so the foundation is when a young man comes in here, we attack their greatest fears, and that's usually math. And so we go right into proving to them that they do have some abilities that are untapped in that area. We have put over 240 young males in the unionized skilled and construction trade industry. In fact, the business manager for IBEW Local 56 is a 2005 graduate of our program, and he now oversees 5,500 union apprentices and journey persons. So his name is Byron Osborne, and we're very proud of him, and he's usually in our building about 5 times a year, if not 6. We have a extensive, we don't believe that we're training these young men. We have to re-raise them. Most of them have missed out on the opportunity to go through the normal maturation process. So the model we have here is an iron sharpens iron model. I have extensive male population. Most of them have specialties, whether that's multiple degrees. I have 103 years of incarceration on my staff. And so usually when we sit down and talk about incarceration with our guys, it's from an experience and not from an assumption. And so that lends itself to making this a place. Our building is called the Northeast or North End Community Center, and has become a respite for guys. Our brand is so well known that we can't meet capacity for the young men that come through our doors. And so what we do, we take them through a rites of passage, and that kind of brings them from birth to where they are now, and we let them retrace their lives. It's not that we uncover anything intentionally. We want them to uncover and figure out what went wrong, what went right, how did you feel, how did it make you feel. Within that first 8 weeks or so, or 6 weeks or so, we're drilling down into social and life skills, anger management, intro to the world of employment. So many of our young men have no concept of the world of work or employment. They lack a motivation to even look at that as an opportunity or something that they should be in. So we talk about why it is important to have and build a work ethic. Conflict resolution and anger management, political science. We have a Center for Working Families, so they get financial literacy throughout their entire time with us and 3 years beyond. In most cases, we can't get rid of our guys because they are with us for multiple years, and that's intentional because a lot of times when they get back out in the street and they start working and they start a family life or they buy a car, those hiccups come, and then they need somewhere they can return to get that sound advice. And so most of our guys have been with us for multiple years and look at us as their extended family, if not their new family. And so the other thing is we focus on language art, how words work, and what power there is behind words. And so those are the things that we do. Of course, we're a workforce development provider. We find employment for our young men. We match them with their skill sets. We do intro to skill and construction trade. We also have a number of contracts with employers throughout not just the city of Detroit, but throughout the region, because Goodwill's name has proven itself over time. And so it's not just about flip the script. We have young men now who are in the iron workers, millwrights, plumbers, and all of those different type of institutions. We also have a program called Life Launch that focuses on young men 18 to 24 years of age that live in a Pacific census tract and trying to get them into college, into vocational training institutions that have a certification. And so that's been our work. Our work is not really, again, training young men. It's really having an opportunity to raise them and put them in an environment where they can feel love. As soon as they walk in our door, they can sense love. They hear that word constantly. They see other males that look like them that are ready to open them up, open their arms to them and not ask them about their past records, but are more concerned about where are you going, and we would love for you to feel successful. We would love you to see you successful, and we would love for you to bring your other guys that are on the street with you back to us so we can work with them as well. A lot of times it's hard to change that young man until you change the 2 or 3 that they're sitting with during the evenings or on the weekend. We are the City of Detroit Police Force, largest provider under Ceasefire Detroit. And so we've pulled off a number of leading gang leaders that were in the age of 18 to 22 off the streets now, gotten them into careers, jobs. They're now off the streets and now off the police blotters. So we see ourselves as kind of getting the young men together and polishing them up, where the other programs that I have heard today can better fit them after they have been through a process where they learn themselves, start valuing themselves, and start loving themselves. And until they do that, they're not inclined to love anything else about life. And so that's what Flip the Script has done. Again, we still do reentry, but we started off in 2003 just to help young men who were lost and have an opportunity to come under some other men who were dedicated and who, again, would show them love on a consistent, everyday basis, and so they could start loving themselves. And I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak today. It's hard to go into everything that we do here at Flip the Script over 14 years, but we are a refuge, an oasis for hope for young men who are being turned away in other places a lot of times because they don't have those skill sets yet. They haven't developed self-confidence. They don't have self-worth. And so we think that we're very good at helping them find all of those values and principles and standards that other people can use once they have transformed their hearts and their spirit. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Keith, for that overview of Flip the Script. Our last speaker is Steve Vassar. He's director of Rumble Young Man Rumble, under the Campaign for Black Male Achievement. Thank you very much, Steve, for joining us this afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon. Can you hear me? Hello, good afternoon.
Yes, we can. Yes,
okay,
we can.
Great. So I just want to, in the remaining 3.5 minutes of the call, actually now 3 minutes remaining in the call, just encourage all of you to continue, who are on this call, to continue rumbling. Rumble Young Man Rumble was started in 2011 by the Campaign for Black Male Achievement and conceived as the catalyst for growing the field of black male achievement. It is the preeminent gathering of cross-sector black male achievement leaders who are working to improve life outcomes for America's black men and boys across intersecting areas that include, such as you heard from our speakers, education, criminal justice, mentoring, fatherhood, narrative change, and capacity building. The Rumble is the space where black male achievement leaders gather and they hone their leadership skills, they promote healing, and learn from each other about how to improve life outcomes for black men and boys. This year, we are proud for the first time to move the Rumble from Louisville, Kentucky, where we've held it over the last 6 years, to Detroit, Michigan. I will tell those of you within earshot that this event is fully subscribed. We have no more room for any more invitees, but for the 165 people who will be joining us next week, they will experience a series of sessions and opportunities that allow them to connect, that compel them, that condition them, and that catalyze them. So what I'd encourage you to do is to join us on social media if you can't be in the room, which is probably a majority of the folks on the phone. Join us via social media. We will be periscoping sessions. We will also be tweeting and Facebooking and Instagramming, and thanks to the young people, we'll probably be Snapchatting as well. So just want to thank you all for this opportunity and thank all of you who are out there rumbling on behalf of America's black men and boys, and specifically Detroit's black men and boys. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Steve. Appreciate that. And thank you to all of the speakers for joining us and discussing and having a really great conversation about the really innovative work you're doing in Detroit. We are mindful of time. It is 1:59. We know there's about 2 questions that we have right now. What we're going to do is forego the Q&A just because of time. But if you have those questions, we're happy to forward and make sure CBMA staff is able to answer any questions you have or questions for the speakers. So if there's additional questions anyone has, if you type them into the question box, we'll make sure they get to the right people to be answered. And so right now, I'm going to hand it back over to Chris Rutherford with CBMA to close us out very quickly.
I want to extend on behalf of the CBMA team a big thank you to our speakers, Keith Bennett, Flip the Script, Donnell Wilkins, Green Door Initiative, Tiffany Brown, Developing Despite Distance, Richard Grundy, Journey, and of course our own Steve Vassar with Rumble Young Man Rumble. For providing your insight on this important topic today. We also want to send a special thank you to our CEO and fierce leader, Sean Dove, for his leadership and for paving the way for CBMA to carry out its important work. And, of course, a big thank you for all of you, our webinar guests, for engaging with us today. Feel free to send us any feedback you have or additional questions from today's webinar that you may have. We look forward to connecting with you all on our Promise a Place webinar next month. Also, if you're not already a member, please do sign up on our website. We also share information through our social media networks, so please feel free to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We look forward to remaining in touch with you, and thank you all for your time today. Have a great afternoon.